Let me know when we're recording.
We're
Recording in
live.
progress. Perfect. All right. I will call the October 14th, 2021 meeting of the Highland Park Planning Board to order. This meeting was announced. Announcement of the meeting was provided to the Star Ledger, the Home News Tribune, the Highland Park Planet on January 29th, 2021. In addition, notice of this meeting via Zoom was faxed to the Home News Tribune and emailed to the Star Ledger and the Highland Park Planet on October 8th and was posted on the Borough website and the bulletin board at Borough Hall on October 8th and has been remained continuously posted as required by law. Jen, roll call, please.
Ms. Hammond,
Here.
Mr. Brusher,
Here.
Ms. Hadhazy, Mr. Hale,
Here.
Ms. Hand,
Here.
Mr. Kluger, Mr. Linares,
Here.
Mr. Millay,
Here.
Mr. Nolan, Mr. Perlman,
Here.
Mr. Williams,
Here.
Mr. Thomas, Mr. Cosenza,
Here.
Mr. Koch.
Here.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. I'm going to actually do our agenda in a slight reverse order because I realized that Chris actually has another meeting he has to get to, and I want to make sure he's available to speak on our actions and other business areas. So we'll just sort of table our minutes for right now. And then we'll actually reverse those to action, or actually there's sort of just discussion items. And we will start with just a little discussion about the ordinance changes per the master plan. But before we do that, Jen, I'm realizing, do we know that Roger wasn't going to be here this evening?
I have not heard from Roger.
Yeah, I haven't either. Okay. And oh,
Nice,
Roger,
joining now.
there you are. Well, can you hear us, Roger?
Yes, I'm sorry I'm late.
Perfect, no problem. We just took the roll
carried
call.
got carried away with emails.
And I was just wondering where Roger was, and you showed up perfect timing. We'll also let the record reflect that Khalidra is with us. I was just saying, so okay, so we're going to actually flip things around. We're going to start with the ordinance changes to the based on our master plan recommendation. So I, in the last several weeks, had a meeting with Terry Hover, who was saying that the council is preparing to get into the various recommendations that really came out of the master plan in terms of different land use aspects, whether it be the, for example, introducing front-facing garages as long as they meet certain criteria. But there were several recommendations, and she had asked whether she thought that there was a need for a subcommittee to discuss those various aspects. And my reaction was that those recommendations did come out of a planning board process, and that really we had already made those recommendations. But in reviewing that then with Chris, we realized that maybe there were sort of several recommendations, and it would be worthwhile just to perhaps have a quick conversation updating us as to whether there was anything controversial, because the process is going to be such that basically it would go before the council. They would determine, you know, through, I guess, Jim and Chris's recommendations, maybe working with Matt, what was going to be introduced. And then the only really bite of the apple that we were going to get then would be, is it not inconsistent with our master plan? So Chris thought, you know, let's just sort of maybe quickly just refresh our memory about what those recommendations are, and then we can decide whether we really think that there should be some subcommittee review, or whether we're good just, you know, knowing that we had sort of formed those initial recommendations and letting the council roll with them. So with that, I will turn it over to Chris.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So it's hard to believe it's already been 2 years, but it's also hard to believe it's been 2 years. So I think it's about time that we get, cranking on this residential form-based code that we've been talking about. And it really comes down to three main bullet points I would like to go over. And then sort of just really short order, to kind of discuss what they are. The first would be recalibration of the bulk regulations, which, and there's a few things related to that. One would be setting a prevailing front yard setback requirement, looking at proportional side yard setback requirements based on how large or small your lot is, which everything right now is 10 feet in the RA zone. And then taking another look at building coverage and impervious coverage, and maybe looking at ways to lower them on large lots and increase them on small lots within reason, understanding that we're obviously in a wetter climate, but we also don't want to trigger a lot of variances for homeowners. And then there also could be ways to add credit for those who do green infrastructure, basically incentivize green infrastructure without requiring it. The second group of revisions that we were looking at are small lot exemptions, basically adding in basically a sentence or two that allows for small lots, undersized lots, to be built on without requiring a variance. And then the same could be said to a certain extent for side yard setback requirements. And then the meat of what we went through 2 years ago, which was the massing of the structure for single family and two family dwellings. And that includes well, first of all, requiring a front walkway to the public sidewalk, clarifying that a sidewalk is required on all applications, from wall length dimensional standards, as well as fenestration requirements, both on the front and the side of the house, as well as, and I think this went into a great amount of detail, was the provisions regarding the location and the setback requirements and the orientation of garages. And then went on for several pages, if you recall. And then finally, some driveway standards, as I understand it, working with Scott and Mike, there are none right now. And then, of course, working with the Shade Tree Advisory Committee, setting some minimum numerical dimensional standards for planting, which includes street trees, front yard trees, flowering trees, foundation plantings, all the like. So that's sort of a quick summary of the ones that we're going to be focusing on. As a side separate ordinance, I'm also working with Scott and Mike to kind of clean up the fences, walls, and hedges ordinance. And there's another ordinance in the recommendation, another set of recommendations from the master plan recommendations, which relates to non-residential, basically the development process, and clarifying what's needed for that and what exemptions could be made for minor improvements to commercial properties, just make it more business friendly. That we're not doing right now. We'll try and do that hopefully soon. But yeah, so that the summary is we're finally ready to move forward with the form-based code, as well as some of the recalibration of the bulk regulations. And Terry and I thought that, as the chair mentioned, you really only get one bite of the apple, which is, yes, it's not inconsistent with master plan. Sometimes you want that, I really wanted to work on that or talk about it. And that really, to me, I see there's two ways to do that. One is you can have a subcommittee, and we probably only need to meet once or twice, to be honest, because in my mind, I think the recommendations are about 90, 85, 90% there. So it's just a matter of getting to that last hurdle and just tweaking and testing a few things. Not everything's perfect. And then the other option is, if not a subcommittee, then we would certainly be willing to have a presentation to the planning board before we have an introduction to council. So either way, we think it's appropriate that the planning board is involved into the decision making, since you were part of that process in the master plan. It would make sense to really see it through in ordinance form. So that's pretty much it. We're finally ready, and want to give you an opportunity to be involved in some way.
So that sounds great. I would say, I think I like the idea of the presentation to the full board instead of limiting it to a few people that may have, spend a lot, like invest a lot in it, and then it still doesn't sort of capture maybe the essence of some of the goals. So I'm open to, just taking some comments or feedback about that. But I would propose that maybe we just have a presentation that, would give us just enough time to give some, some feedback with enough time to respond to that feedback, then, before we'd have to go before council.
Kim, it's Roger. I don't have a vote in this, but I do think you're right. This particular board, every board has its own personality, but this board has a personality whereby there are opinions and there's opinions. Those opinions, I think, there's a feeling that there's a need to hear those opinions, and therefore I think the full presentation is the way to go, so that everybody has an opportunity to voice his or her opinion, for what it's worth.
Okay.
You've got Khalidra and you've got Jeffrey with their hands up.
Oh, I don't see. Okay. Khalidra, sorry about that.
I think Jeff had his hand up first, if he wants to go.
You can go, Cleaver. You can
No,
go.
ladies first.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I very much like the idea of a presentation to the whole board. And if we could convene like a special meeting for this presentation so that we don't have to make any decisions about the information we receive from the presentation, like right on the spot. I'd like to definitely be present for the presentation, but I would like to have some time to sort of marinate and understand what it is I'm being presented, and being given the time to form an opinion, and not just have to give a decision-making opinion right then and there. I think would be beneficial to all of us.
Okay, I think that would be a simple thing to accommodate even with our regular schedule. I don't know that there's a special timeline. Like, in other words, where sometimes we have something and there's an overriding expert, like a time limit on it, a deadline that we need to meet. I think we could have this at a regular meeting and then and determine that we weren't gonna maybe give feedback or till a subsequent meeting. I don't know that we'd have to add a special meeting, but I hear what you're saying, that instead of just sort of rolling on something as soon as it's rolled out, this way they wouldn't have to sort of make a presentation necessarily before that. In other words, supply materials before they made an actual presentation.
Yeah, I was
So,
going to
Jeff,
add.
do you want?
I was just going to add that it would be definitely a good idea for me to share the materials with you and maybe even provide a short memo to sort of describe in layman's terms what it
Sure.
is we're trying to achieve.
Jeff?
Yeah, I was just gonna second, I think, Khalidra and Kim and Roger's thoughts here about keeping us all together, and keeping us, I think, my experience with form-based codes is it's a little different than perhaps what we're used to as a planning board when we're receiving applications and reviewing memos about what variances are needed. I think a form-based code looks different. It'll read differently, and my son even agrees. But I think we should all be kept. We should all have the same amount of understanding. None of us should be left behind as we learn and get exposed to the new code, Chris. So one meeting, maybe it's two, maybe it's like a working meeting. I think what Cleaver was saying was maybe where we don't have another application. Where we have a meeting where Chris, you can take us through it, and there's not another applicant waiting for us to finish up. They don't have to go that front road. Yeah. All right.
Right.
I'll shut up now.
And again, without any sort of deadline, in other words, like an actual deadline that we need to meet, this is on our own schedule. I think that can be accommodated. I do know that Chris has another meeting he has to jump off to. So Chris, are you?
Yeah, I'm about to step off.
Okay,
yeah,
so we will
just
be
check
in,
with
so
Terry.
so it sounds like we are, yeah, so we'll have a presentation and take it from there. So we'll just follow up on that.
Okay, and the goal is
Okay.
try to do that within the next 2 months.
Okay,
But let's
very good,
aim for 2 months. I want to set myself standard. I want to get this done.
very good.
All right, sounds good. It's great seeing you
Okay,
guys.
great, thank you, Chris.
See ya.
Okay,
And Kim, I don't know if you can see, but Matt has a hand up.
okay, Matt. Sorry, I did not see.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I know from the council knows that this is coming, but we also want to make sure that the planning board has all the opportunities that you feel like you need to advise and consent and to put it together. So, just I don't think you're going to feel any pressure from us to get it done immediately. So the time that we should take the time and do it right. So
Duly noted. So it sounds like we will be hearing from Chris in the next couple months, and we'll let it roll from there. Okay, so did anyone else have any? No. It's a little hard to, oh, there we go. Alan.
Terry mentioned that we're going to have in the eco, they're going to have the ability to put in a lot of the graphics, which will, one graphic sometimes worth 1,000 words. So I think that would be
Yeah, actually,
very
I'm glad
helpful.
that'll be a really interesting sort of new aspect. So the code was always like all these written words, and this is the first time it's going to be permitted that there can be diagrams or examples. So I think that hopefully that'll be an asset, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays in. Okay, scanning for hands. I don't see any. So I'm going to move on to the other item that we wanted to just sort of keep everyone apprised of, which is either our last meeting or the meeting before that. I had brought up the fact that back in January as a board, we had discussed that we wanted to kind of formalize that whatever materials and professionals were going to the redevelopment agency, that we had the same access both to the materials and to those professionals for planning board hearings. And so Roger wrote a memo to the council, and I did meet with Terry about that, and they were fine with that. You know, felt like that those materials were perhaps available anyway. I gave a couple of, I gave an example where there had sort of been a situation where we had further questions for someone that no one could answer. So they were fine with that. So that is happening, just to report back, since that had sort of carried over several meetings for us about whether or not they would formalize that into the code, and they are. I don't know, Matt, I don't think there's anything probably much to say about that.
No, I mean, it makes perfect sense, and the council was happy to do it. So,
Yeah.
so we gave that direction to Terry.
Right. I think
Right.
it's still like, would, as always, with any application, it behooves us to look at over as many materials as we can sooner rather than later, drive by sites, that, do those sort of inspections. I think a lot of things come out at the actual hearing that you can't anticipate. And I think some of those reasons why we wanted to have access to those professionals were things that were really just coming up at meetings. So, maybe that'll make things a little bit better.
Kim, before you leave that, can I just ask Matt whether or
Yeah.
not, I know that memo was sent, and I'm making an assumption that the council will direct Ed Schmier to do the ordinance?
Yeah, that's my understanding. As long as you're okay with the memo that what Ed outlined in that memo is good on your end.
Yep.
I think we're ready to move ahead.
Great. Okay, so we can now move on to our minutes. We have the August 12th and the September 9th minutes for 2021 regular meetings. So let's see, for the August 12th minutes, do we have any further comments or corrections or questions about those? Seeing none, I would accept a motion to accept the minutes of the August 12th meeting.
Motion to accept?
Motion made by Alan Williams. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Rebecca Han. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I have to abstain.
So who was that?
Paul,
I abstained.
Pedrick
I wasn't
abstained.
here.
Do we have any other abstentions? Oh, Steve, but he wasn't here. Okay. And I had to recuse myself, I think, for part of, no, the next one. Okay. So then we will now move on to our September 9th meeting. again, are there any corrections or questions or comments about those minutes? Khalidra?
I just have one correction on page 3, where it's speaking to a question that I asked. It's just the sentence is incomplete. It says, Mrs. Hadhazi said she wanted to ask a follow-up question about the asbestos letter. Do we also require anything with regards to lead paint or any other environmental contaminants that can in an old building? And just incomplete.
like it
just
to be
found? Yeah, be found in an old building.
Jen, you got that?
Got it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, seeing nothing further, I would accept a motion to accept the September 9th minutes.
Motion to
Motion
accept.
to accept. Second.
Khalidra, with a second by Pedro. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Do we have any abstentions? I think, okay. Very good. Okay, we're all done. Roger, do I still need to, Jen, is there anyone here from the public?
I have one attendee, so I guess you should open the public comment.
Okay. All righty. At this time, we will open the meeting for public comment. If there's anyone wishing to ask a question or make a comment, now would be your opportunity. Nope.
Yes, hold on.
Okay.
You've been unmuted. Last 4 digits, 4445.
And we're going to ask, if you can hear us,
Hello?
we're going to ask you to, we're going to ask you to state your name and address for the record. And then Roger Thomas will swear you in.
Well, we don't need to actually swear in because it's not
Oh.
involving
Oh,
an
it's just a comment.
application.
Okay,
Yeah, just
so
a
we just
comment.
need your name and address, and you can spell your last name for the record, please.
Lois Lebbing, Lebbing. My new address is 100 North Sewer Avenue, formerly North 2nd Avenue, Highland Park. Okay, when you are listening to these new applications and developments, would you please review, perhaps at a work session, the municipal land use law 40:55D, the paragraph 35 concerning building lot abutting a street, talks about public health, safety, and general welfare on that particular street. But more importantly, section 38 of the municipal land use law, B, under provisions ensuring, this is the contents of the ordinance, B, provisions ensuring, number 3, adequate water supply, drainage, shade trees, sewage facilities, and other utilities necessary for essential services to residents and occupants. As you know, I'm sure you and your neighbors got some flood water. We got more than flood water. First time in 32 years, the borough neglected to do their jet vackings, in my opinion, the sewer cleanouts. We haven't seen any for years and years. And so now it's come back to haunt us as it did in 1988 and 89. But new toilet and the backflow valve, almost $4,000 that didn't go to the borough or to anything else, thanks to not jet vacuuming and not clearing the storm drains, which overflowed, even though the manhole cover was bouncing up in the intersection of North 2nd and Denison, bouncing up on the floodwaters. And Ida was bad, but Floyd didn't give us any basement water. Got a 30-year-old rug, never got wet until beginning of September. Who else? Irene and Sandy, no problem. Any kind of flooding. We have no sump pump. And the neighbors got worse than our 6-7 inches, 18 inches, 13 inches right near us at this intersection. So please, I don't know how you check the facilities, the drainage, the town, whether The governor should call a moratorium. 30 people had to drown, die, flood across the state, not here. There has to be some kind of checking on the overdevelopment of this borough on these antiquated sewer lines. You cannot put a 450 Corvette engine into a 1922 sewer line or 1922 Model A Ford. You can't do it. So please, please, I don't know how much time I have, consider your neighbors and yourselves. I'm sure you suffered too. I'm still cleaning out, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Jen, is there anyone else wishing to speak at this time?
No, I don't see anyone else.
Nobody else. Okay. All right. So at this time, I just had two other quick sort of side notes. I think, Scott, it sort of almost kind of falls under a zoning building officer report. Is we did ask you to think about whether someone in your office, or if you could at some future time do a kind of permit 101, or just gives, even if it was just a quick statement, even something that you floated outside of a meeting or in a meeting, but it seems like there was an interest in board members to understand sort of the bullet points of the permitting process.
I thought Terry mentioned that to you. I know she mentioned it to Alan. We were working on that in the past couple of days.
Oh, okay, great. No, she did not mention that, but I'm glad to know that. Okay. The thing that she did mention actually was, I guess, so that's great. We'll look forward to that. And the thing that she did mention was, right, I guess looking into different aspects of the permitting, like the demolition that had come up, if it's a special sort of site where we know there's been other known contaminants that I guess you're looking into, whether there would be a different demo process if there's a structure or property that's being demoed in one of those areas. So that's good to know also. Do you have anything else that you need to apprise us of in relation to zoning building?
No, this past month's been very quiet.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. I feel like things are going full board out there.
Yeah, we haven't really had anything new come across right now.
And did you get you said at the last meeting, see, when Jen keeps right up on the minutes and we have the minutes from the last meeting, I don't have to remember all the things we discussed. I get to read it right before, but the parking agreements for the old gourmet or specialty food shop that is,
Yeah, we
don't know
got
what
that.
it's going to be now.
Yeah,
So
we
you
have
did
that.
so that's all done. So are
Yeah.
they're moving forward now? Do they have any stoppers that are keeping them from trying to get in tenants, or they're good? They can
No, they
start
have,
renting to.
They have one unit rented that I know of. They have one of the storefronts that's going to be rented shortly.
Do you know what it's going to be rented to?
I
Or
think
that you're
it's,
allowed to say?
well, it's a business that's already in town. It's going to be relocated.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. All right. And the rehabilitation screening committee has not met. So does anyone have any other questions or comments or things they need to bring up at this time? Pedro?
Well, Matt was up.
Oh, sorry.
Hale.
I wish you people should wave your hands, because I have to say I'm not good at seeing the little hands. So sorry, you'll have to
Okay.
rearrange your order.
It's
So Matt,
left
you
to
wanna-
right.
And it's Alan.
Sure. I just wanted to say that, and maybe Alan can speak to this as well, but Alan and I sat with Terry about some of those things that you were mentioning to Scott about possible things that we ought to do to, in the process. I think it was a good, from my sense, it was a good meeting. I think there was, a lot of sort of ideas that Alan had circulated a memo, and there was a lot of good ideas in that memo. That I think that we're going to be able to implement. I don't want to, obviously it's a work in progress, obviously, that, before any of those changes happen, we'll sort of run them by everybody. But I came away from thinking that there was a lot of common ground in, some of the things that we could do, particularly around demolition and how to move that forward. So I thought that went well. Maybe Alan has I'll let him speak as well. I just wanted to let you know that meeting had occurred. So
I agree with Matt. Terry indicated that, in a sense, the planning board would be a partner. We get to see it, and it will go through a couple of iterations. So I'm quite confident we'll come out with a better process, and that we will avoid situations like 238 Cleveland in the future. But it's going to be probably a couple of months to get everything right. We have to also certainly check with the lawyers that we are not overstepping our authority.
Mhm.
But I was very happy with the meeting.
Good. Pedro?
Yeah, I would just like to add, after reading the memo, which was very concise and very understandable, the one thing that came to mind was, in not normal residential demolition of bits and pieces, but if somebody's coming in and buying property and scraping a house, that may be a situation where contaminants are kicked up into the air, and that should maybe be included in not just, let's say, old commercial sites, because I'm sure there's plenty of old houses here in Highland Park that have 9x9 tiles in their basement or something to the effect. So when somebody's coming in and, let's say, maybe buying 2 lots and scraping the houses and putting up their McMansion or whatever, that should be also, looked at, before they do that, those houses. That would be the only addition I would make.
Some of the insulation used in old houses, you couldn't today.
I breathed it all.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, then this is my favorite part, when I say, if there's nothing else, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
1 second.
Oh, yes, Alan.
A troublemaker. Bruce, a question for Bruce Koch. How is the compliance review going on 238? Have we received any additional reports from them?
Alan, I've been amassing the documents, and I will be moving forward with that now. Didn't want to do it a piecemeal, a little at a time, so I'm going to base it on what I currently have.
Is it more than just the LSRP report and the testing on the?
Well, it should be the updated plans, outside agency permits, all of the things in.
Oh, okay.
Well, the things in my report, and Chris will do it for his report as well.
But concerning contamination, have we received any additional reports?
I don't recall seeing anything additional come in. No.
Okay, Jennifer, you would agree?
Yeah, whatever I get, you get.
Okay, thank you.
And
Kim, back to your favorite thing.
oh, well, wait, now I have another thing. So are you saying that that the project is on hold until all that is that you're amassing all of that information, Bruce?
No, not the project, but the resolution compliance was. I wanted to make sure, I didn't want to be doing a little and then get more stuff. So I'm just going to go through everything now, as Chris will too, and we will issue our memos, and then the applicant can start to address them.
Gotcha. All right. Alan, is your hand back up, or it's just not there?
I just didn't take it down.
Okay, so that's the part that gets a little confusing for me. Okay. All right. So I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded by Pedro. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good week.
Bye.
Have you eaten? Well, do you want me to? It's 10 after 8.